Off to a really great start here. Senators, welcome back to Star Wars Democracy. We're going to be talking about a lot of fun things tonight. First on the agenda is we got to talk about this Star Wars game that was recently just canceled. So, if you were around last week for our live stream, you'll know that Journeyman and I discussed the new Star Wars game from EA, Respawn, the same developer or producer, whatever you want to call it, responsible for the Jedi games, so Fallen Order and Survivor. There was a Mandalorian game revealed to be coming out, a first person shooter type game. A lot of people are saying it was kind of like Call of Duty. There wasn't a lot of information about it, but we do know for sure that it was in the works and happening. And then literally a week later, we find out that that game is no longer going to be happening. So I'm going to try to share my screen here. It's something I've never done before on stream. So if stream crashes, we'll have to get a game plan together. But hopefully you can see this here. We're just going to read through this here and talk about it. This is from Bespin Bulletin. So shout out to Bespin Bulletin, drops a lot of good scoops and leaks and things like that. So we're going to be going through his article. I'm kind of wondering, maybe I want to do, let's see if I can do a different. Yeah, let's try this layout. This layout seems a lot better. Okay. So this article is EA cancels Respawn's Star Wars FPS game believed to be focused on a Mandalorian bounty hunter. So the article says, this feels awfully familiar, doesn't it? EA announces a Star Wars game. A couple of years later, it unfortunately gets canceled. Earlier today, EA confirmed that the untitled Star Wars first-person shooter being developed by Respawn Entertainment, the studio behind Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and Apex Legends, has been canceled, and that EA and Respawn will now focus their efforts on a series they own and their already established and successful Star Wars Jedi series, of which a third entry is in development. EA's president shares the following on the FPS game cancellation. So this is the president here. Respawn's unique ability to connect with players and create exceptional game experiences is unrivaled in entertainment. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Knowing this, we have decided to pivot away from early development on a Star Wars FPS action game to focus our efforts on new projects based on our own brands while providing support for existing games. It's always hard to walk away from a project, and this decision is not a reflection of the team's talent, tenacity, or passion they have for the game. Giving fans the next installments of the iconic franchises they want is the definition of blockbuster storytelling and the right place to focus. Laura Miel. Got Travis in the chat here. Greetings, Chancellor. Hope you're doing well. Greetings to you, Travis. Glad you're here. Excited to talk to you tonight. We're talking about the Mandalorian game that was supposedly in the works, and the fact that it is no longer in the works. So, let's see here. Article goes on to say announcement arrives alongside the even more unfortunate news that EA had laid off nearly 700 employees. So we can assume that the fact that this game kind of went on the wayside is no longer happening, in conjunction with the fact that they're laid off over 700 employees, or nearly 700 employees, probably go hand in hand, which in of itself is unfortunate. Obviously, I never want to see people lose their jobs. But at the same time, it's kind of sad that we won't be getting the Star Wars game. So Insider Gaming added that many developers at Respawn working on the title was understandably shocked by the confirmation of the cancellation. And it's evident that the decision was quite recent, and there are still job listings looking to hire developers for that title online as of today. So then again, after reading that, maybe it wasn't connected. Though according to IGN, many of those who are working on the untitled Star Wars FPS will or have been moved to other projects, which include Respawn's Apex Legends and Star Wars Jedi Survivor follow-up, along with other upcoming EA titles such as their Iron Man and Black Panther games. There was no news on the Star Wars strategy game being developed by Bit Reactor and Respawn. IGN also added that the move is in part due to EA perceiving a shift in the industry towards live service games, large online communities, and open world titles. So that makes it kind of seem like also that this game was Probably not gonna be open world. With it being like a first person shooter type game, it makes sense that it probably was not gonna be open world. Um, and then on top of that, you know, it, it uh, if it is what it seems like it was going to be, it seems like it was probably gonna be something similar to Jedi Fallen Order in those games. Um, in that there probably wasn't going to be like of the ability to play online. Because it talks about here, like, the industry moving to large online communities. So, honestly, I can't say, like, that I'm too upset that this game has been canceled. Like, of course, like I said, sad that people, like, lost their job and stuff like that, if that was the case, and if that had any part to play in this, that's extremely, unfortunate, and hearts go out to people who lose their job. That can be a tough situation. But at the same time, like, I think the fact that, this was the game that maybe had to bear the brunt of that or something of the fact, I think a lot of people would prefer, like, the Jedi Fallen Order or Jedi Survivor games, and so I'm kind of glad that that project is still there. Um, Honestly, I'm not like a huge gaming person anyway, so I don't have like a ton of opinions on it other than like a Mandalorian bounty hunter type game. I know that there was like games out there for a really long time, like a long time ago that were in development for same kind of thing. And I know that they never got like started and things like that, or maybe they did get started and just never got released. So a lot of people probably were wanting this type of game, but for me, this is probably not a game that I would have purchased. It kind of reminds me a lot of, I don't know if Respawn was involved with this game or not. I'd have to look that up. But I think it was Squadrons or yeah, I think it was called Squadrons. It was an EA game, kinda like a first person style game, like, you could use VR goggles, I think, and stuff for it. I got it, and it was cool, but I played it for, like, a day or 2, and I was like, "Eh." That's kind of like what I'm thinking this game would have been, is like, yeah, we get it because it's Star Wars, we play it, and we're like, "Eh." It's fun, but maybe not as good as like a game like Jedi Survivor. Or what's more exciting is the fact that we're going to be getting the remakes or the remasters, whatever you want to call it, of the Battlefront games. I'm super excited for those. Um, I think Travis, if you're still in the chat, maybe you remember Journeyman had looked up how much those games were going to cost, and I think he had said like maybe they were going to be some was it $40? 40, 50, 60. Let's see how much they're going to cost. Let's hold up. Let's see. Let's see. Actually, I can just type it in here. Let's try that. How much will the Battlefront remake cost? Let's see. Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection will hit PC via stream as well as Nintendo Switch. Blah, blah, blah. March 14 will cost $35. Okay. $35. Yeah, Travis says here, I think he said 40. Perfect. Yeah, so 40. So like to me, that's very affordable and very exciting. And I'm glad that we're still getting that in light of the news that this game has not been canceled or has been canceled. Um, I think the reality is it's just one of those things where, you know, Star Wars fans are probably getting tired of games and movies and projects being canceled. Everyone, there even though I'm not excited about it, I know that there were people that were probably excited about this. And now, the fact that we're not going to be getting this game is probably upsetting to them, even if it's not upsetting to me. And it just goes hand in hand with like projects being canceled, like Rogue Squadron and there's just been a handful of things recently where we're told we're going to get something and then it doesn't happen. And so, again, hearts go out to people who may have lost their job because of this, but it is kind of hard to hear as a Star Wars fan that another project that people were excited about we're no longer getting. So, Travis, here you say if they wanted to, they could just reskin the upcoming Skate 4 with Star Wars stuff, which would be hilarious. Yeah, I know you're a fan of those games. And I mean, honestly, like the stuff that they're doing with like Fortnite, which I don't play a ton of Fortnite, I have before, but I think Disney as a whole is doing a lot of stuff with Fortnite Again, not exactly sure what's going on with all that stuff, but honestly, like, yeah, they can do a lot of stuff with just skins and DLC packs or whatever you want to call it, and probably do just as well. I don't think that we necessarily need this Mandalorian video game, and so yeah, there's not much more to be said than that, other than it's canceled, and I hope that with this project being canceled, maybe there'll be something better that comes our way. So Travis says, I call it Fart Night. So that shows how much I play that. Have you not played very much Fortnite, Travis? Well, I guess you've told me before you haven't. You're not a big gamer, so that makes sense. That makes sense. I've played like I got a PS5 back in 2021. I got the a PS5 back when they were still really, really hard to get. Like, I was literally back when it was Twitter, I was literally had like several different pages that I followed or accounts that I followed that would literally just be like scoopers, or I don't even know what you call them, but anytime there was a drop on a website, whether it be like Best Buy, Target, Walmart, et cetera, like they would post, but like there's some available. So like it took me months. Every time that would happen, I'd go try to click on it, try to see if like it was in stock. And then of course, every time by the time, like even if it was literally seconds after the post on Twitter had been posted, I could go to the website and they were not available. Then I'd have to wait like hours to see, because like sometimes they put you in a queue to see like if one would come available. So I would sit there for hours waiting and then nothing. Finally, one day, like literally, like just the randomest random. It was one of those days. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna try it again. Probably not gonna happen. Got on Best Buy, got me a PS5, and then the rest is history. Played it a little bit. I did play a lot of Fortnite. I did get Battlefront 2. I wasn't a huge fan of Battlefront 2, which, again, shout out to Travis. We were talking about Battlefront the other night in the Discord. So Travis is a member. If you want access to the Senate Chamber Discord audio channel, you can become a member. And I'll give you access to that. If you just want to join the free Discord, don't have to be a member for it. There should be a link in the description that you can click, and we can talk Star Wars in there. But anyway, we were talking the other night in Battlefront that came out in 2015, which is nearly 10 years ago. Nearly 10 years ago. If you don't feel old, let that soak in for a little bit. But the Battlefront that came out 10 years ago was just, I didn't play it, I didn't buy it. But I would play it like Journeyman and stuff because he had it. And it was kind of a letdown. It was kind of a letdown, not going to lie. But Battlefront 2, the newest Battlefront 2, I did get, and I enjoyed it. The campaign was actually really fun. The single player mission, I found that to be pretty like I was invested in that, and I thought it was pretty cool. Like Leia goes back to Naboo. Uh, there's like a really I can't remember what the line is. I wish I could. My memory is terrible with this kind of stuff, so it is what it is. But there's a line by Luke Skywalker. Because while you're playing by someone who's a part of the Empire, there's a line that Luke has, and it is so good. Like it's so good. Whoever is the voice actor for Luke does a phenomenal job. So the campaign in Battlefront 2 is actually really great. Um, but yeah, other than like playing Battlefront 2 for a little bit, I played Fortnite and Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Never got into Warzone though. Never got into Warzone. I'm not good at Warzone, so Travis says, I played Battlefront 2 2017 at my friend's house, got distracted by a painting of C.O. Bibble, and got shot in the face. That was the last time I played it. I did watch the cutscenes and love the story. Yeah, the story is phenomenal. And it's really cool. I probably actually should go back and watch like the cutscenes for the story, because it seems like, you know, and I guess we can get into the Bad Batch in a little bit too, but the Emperor was full of contingency plans, and this in that game you can see a little bit of that, and how the emperor was, always planning for the fact that if he did die, if he did, um if somebody did kill him or whatever, like there was contingencies and plans in place is for the Empire to remain. So that was really cool, I will say. Um, so yeah, let's go ahead. We can go ahead and go to the Bad Batch season 3, episode 4. I believe it was called A Different Approach. I liked the episode. Um, Again, this goes to show my memory. Travis, if you can remember what I said that my ranking was on Wednesday when we chatted, you'll have to let me know. I think I gave it like an 8 or an 8.5 out of 10. I want to say 8 out of 10. I'm going to go with 8 out of 10. That's how I feel. I didn't hate the episode at all. I thought it was really good. There was a lot of good character development between Omega and Crosshair, and you could really see like Omega's character has just been so much better this season, in my opinion. And I know Journeyman has talked a lot about it, and I think he's right. Is like the character of Omega, I felt was kind of annoying at the beginning, and her character is growing on me. I felt like she was pretty annoying in season 1. Season 2 got a little bit better, and then season 3, I've really became invested in her character a lot more. I think it's also just because of the fact that, you know, number one, it's time. So with more time with the character, you start to understand them a little bit better and get and start to develop, that kind of like more connection with the character. Um, But also, I think the fact that she did get set, like we see her on Camino, she leaves with the Bad Batch. She's with the Bad Batch, and then at the end of season 2, leading into 3, we see her get captured and kind of like live this miserable life on Mount Tantus. And I think for me, um, I don't think I give. I mean, I rated that first episode of season 3, Confined, pretty high, but I think like in hindsight, even looking back on it now, I really, really, really appreciate that episode because it really helped me understand what Omega was going through. And then just like in addition to that, not only did you get a good, deeper connection with the character, but you also get to learn more throughout those 3 episodes of why Omega is important and the stakes that are here. Because that's one thing I've kind of felt like the Bad Batch lacked too, I guess, in the first 2 seasons. Not saying the stakes weren't high, but I don't know. Maybe you all agree with me. Maybe you all disagree with me. I didn't feel like the stakes were incredibly high in the first 2 seasons. It was kind of like, whatever. Like whatever happens to these people, it'll be sad because we've been with the Bad Batch now, like Hunter, Wrecker, Tech, and Crosshair and Echo since 2020. Yeah, season 7 of the Clone Wars came out at about a year ago at this time. So 4 years we've been with the Bad Batch, which seems crazy because I think the first season of the Bad Batch came out in 2021. So even then, we're coming on 3 years. Yeah, because it was March 4th. The first episode was like the hour-long episode, and um, that came out almost 2 years ago, or 3. No, we ought to be 3 years ago this May. But we've seen the Bad Batch and been with the Bad Batch for 4 years. So, besides the fact that we've been with them and have gone on these journeys and these missions and adventures with them, there just wasn't a lot of stakes. But now that we know who Omega is and what makes Omega special, which we've been asking about. We've been asking these questions since we've met Omega almost 3 years ago. Now I'm starting to feel more invested in like, okay, they got to do everything they can to protect her. So anyway, let me get to some comments here. Excuse me. Travis says, you're referring to the mission with Del Nico, and you're probably talking about a choice to be better line from Luke. Fantastic scene. Yeah, I believe that is the scene that I'm talking about. I think you're right. Let's see. Travis says, one obvious thing I didn't consider was Asajj Ventress maybe in one of those tanks we saw, and it's the Emperor who brings her back. Not the most interesting way for it to happen, but could be interesting. And by tanks, do you mean the chambers that we see on Tantus? I think that's what you're referring to, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page. That would be interesting. So, when you say the Emperor brings her back, would all of these people in those chambers or those tanks on Tantus, would you say that they were dead then? Like, do you think they're dead and he's reviving them to bring them back? Or do you think that he revived, say, Ventress and then placed her in one of those tanks? And then furthermore, like kind of just backing up even more, like what are those tanks for? We think? Do we think like to me, my interpretation and assumption is that it's just helping like preserve their life, almost like the Bacta tank. But we would assume like maybe if it was a Bacta tank, we would see like the Bacta tank Boba gets in, or the Bacta tank that Luke is in Episode 5, and these don't necessarily look like those, or even what Vader is in. So I don't know. Interesting. I'd be curious. Like, you think that the tanks are bringing people back, or do you think that they're just like sustaining their life? Let's see. Travis's stakes were high, and that old expanded universe of what happened post Order 66 was reset. We had no idea Camino would be destroyed, or people like Cody could be alive. Yeah, yeah. So, I guess like I guess I kind of see what you're saying. If I'm not, you can correct me. But like, if you're saying like that the stakes were high in season 1, season 2, yes, I guess. Like, I think Camino getting destroyed was kind of a surprise for me because I don't have a lot of knowledge on like the expanded universe and things like that. So all of that was a surprise to me. I do know that there's like supposed to be like maybe a clone revolt or something like that. We kind of talked about that on Wednesday, I think, Travis, with Journeyman. But there's like a potentially like a revolt that could happen. But like Camino getting destroyed, I think that that was kind of like a surprise, but I still don't really know if I felt like the stakes were too high. Um, and then like with Cody coming back, like again, that's kind of like a cool thing. It makes me like interested, but like I don't know if the stakes are super high. But maybe that's just because I'm not like super invested. I feel like at this point, like regardless of how you feel about the sequel trilogy and the direction that Star Wars is going in whole, um, regardless how you feel, like I just love like those major connecting pieces that we start to see, and the fact that they're starting to make that connection from the Bad Batch, which obviously is taking place in between the prequels and the originals, and then connecting that to the sequels and even the Mandalorian, aspects of the Mandalorian, I think is really cool, and that's what gets me invested as a fan. But certainly, like those other like story points that you bring up here in this comment, like can definitely, I think, get people invested because we want to know what happens to Cody. Like it was really interesting to see what happened to Camino and even Tantus. Tantus has been like a big part of people's questions, like what is the Empire truly doing? Because again, I haven't like read a lot of the Legends material. In fact, I haven't read any of the Legends material, but like I know Tantus has been a part of Star Wars before even this new canon, and so like I think Joris Sabayev, and I know that there was a clone of Luke called like Luke, who like 2Ks or 2Us or something like that. So there's been a lot of like cool and compelling elements of the Bad Batch, but like I guess what I'm trying to say is this last few episodes, I felt more of a connection to Omega, really starting to feel like the sympathy for her and like what she's going through. Just the fact that she's a kid and she's grown up her whole life on Camino, and it's just basically been constantly on the run since summer of 2021, like chronologically, timeline speaking, for the past 3 years in these projects. She's a kid who's lived her entire life as a clone on Camino, escapes. And over the past couple of years, she's just been going on missions with her brother and constantly having to run, which brings up the really great question of like, what do we expect to happen for the rest of the season three? Because at this point, honestly, I didn't think that they were going to meet up. They meaning Crosshair and Omega. I didn't think that they were going to be meeting up this soon with Hunter and Wrecker. Um, I just didn't. I definitely thought that that was going to take place later in the timeline like episodes, I guess. I thought that it would be. I think I even said it on the prediction stream earlier this week. Like that seemed like a very good way to do like a mid-season finale to like have them reunite. Um, and then like I definitely I think Senator Tony was telling me like just remember all of the beginning episodes set something up. We just don't know what it is yet. But I kind of felt like the mission in episode two with Hunter Wrecker and like Mox and the other two clone boys on that abandoned like base or wherever Hemlock was doing his experiments originally. Like I don't know, it all just kind of seemed like null and void. Like what was the point of that other than I guess like saving the teenage boys and bringing them back to Pabu, I think it's called. Um, so like I guess there's something there, but I don't know. It's feeling kind of rushed, and I'm not even saying that in a bad way. It just seems like the season is rushing. I didn't even think they were going to get off Tantus in the third episode. Like I definitely thought like all of this was going to be pushed. And like I said, I don't even think this is necessarily a bad thing. I think what's been really nice and refreshing about this season so far is the fact that, you know, generally in seasons 1 and seasons 2, there's that typical like adventure of the week, like, kind of like there's no point in getting up at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or whatever time you have to watch when it releases because it's like 20, 30 minutes, the adventure of the week. It doesn't really connect to the overall plot. Um, I mean, I stopped getting up early. I haven't even gotten up early for this season to watch it because I'm like, like as this season is going on, I'm like, yeah, this is pretty exciting. If the episodes were a little bit longer, I could probably justify getting up at 2 a.m. But no, we're not going to. Uh, but it's like I've definitely crossed my mind of like, yeah, this is like not your typical adventure of the week. Like, sure, they have their little side missions that they've kind of gone on here and there, and one could maybe argue that they are adventure of the week, but as one of the people who got to watch the season before it released said, it's a good mix of adventure of the week and still staying connected to the major plot. But again, what's interesting is I don't think any of us thought, at least I didn't think that we would be getting the reunion between Omega, Hunter, Wrecker, and even the reunion between Crosshair, Hunter, and Wrecker so early. And I definitely didn't think that they would be off Mount Tantus by now. But that's not to say that's a bad thing. I'm kind of glad that they're moving forward so quickly. It just makes me wonder if we're about to get a lot more like filler and maybe some slower episodes coming. Like I kind of feel like, well, like we could pull it up and see. Let's see. Ban watch episode 3 titles release date. Let's see if I can pull up something here for you guys. Um, Here we go. So, Confined, Paths Unknown, Shadows of Tantus, A Different Approach. All of those are available now. March 6th, The Return. Let's see. The Return. So I think The Return, like, I think the return is basically like me that just almost just shouts the return of like Omega Crosshair reuniting with Hunter and Wrecker. Ah, Travis, that's a good point. Next episode is the return, so it's probably the Ventress episode. Maybe, possibly. I think I have to remind myself a little bit, like these episodes titles. Like I kind of get carried away with it a little bit. I'm not saying you're getting carried away, Travis, but it's like I kind of have to like make sure my expectations are correct. Like, yeah, the return, like that's cool if you talk about Ventress. Um, but I'm almost like maybe the return and maybe they're just like maybe that's just in reference to Crosshair returning. Because we've literally gone 3 years, an entire 2 seasons where Crosshair has not been with his brothers and now he's returned. So maybe that's it. Infiltration on March 13th. Oh, wait, there's 2 episodes coming on March 13th. Infiltration and extraction. To me, that sounds like we're going back to Tantus. Yeah, to me, that sounds like we're going back to Tantus. And then I'm wondering to infiltration and extraction. So, which, by the way, Travis, how far have you made it in Bad Batch season 1 or season 2? Where are you at now? I'm curious. But like, I know this is like maybe spoilers for you, Travis. We've already talked about it, but like, so Rex's mission right now is like going and saving clones. Um, and so I'm wondering like if maybe they meet up with Rex and Echo in 6 and 7, and they're like, we're gonna go try to save as many clones as possible because like that's something that Omega's wanting to do, is like go rescue people. Um, so I'm wondering if like maybe they will meet up with Rex and Echo, maybe even at the end of next week, the return. Um, they can meet with Rex and Echo and then devise a plan to infiltrate Tantus and extract people. And then from there, I think I don't know. So I don't know. We might see Ventress. It's definitely possible. I'm not saying that it's not possible. It's definitely possible. But who knows? Who knows? I just think that's the interesting thing. I'll go ahead and pull this back up because I think we can talk about it a little bit more. But it's like the interesting thing is where are we going from here? Like we have episodes called Bad Territory. The Harbinger, is that a word that I don't know the meaning of? I got to look up the definition of this. Identity crisis, point of no return, juggernaut, into the breach, flash strike, the cavalry has arrived. So see, episode 15 arrives on May 1st. So yeah, they got to be dropping a special episode on May the 4th, and that'd be the 16th episode, which makes me wonder, like, what are we gonna see? What is the what is episode 9 typing? I'm gonna look that up. The Harb. Okay, that's a book by Jonathan Kahn. The Harbinger is a 2022 movie, horror crime. It's potentially about the pandemic. I don't know. I could be going down a rabbit hole here. Seems like it has to do with like a pandemic. Interesting. I don't know. Let's see. Travis, you said Harbinger is a herald or announcer or something's return. Is that what it is? Define. Okay, yeah. A person or thing that announces or signals the approach of another. Okay, so that's interesting. Maybe that's the Ventress episode? Let's see. What else are you saying here? They do need to explain Ventress's return, so to build tension with the Bad Batch's reunion, I could see a Ventress-centric episode about her resurrection and return here, returning to the clones in episode 6. So do you think that they are going to talk like do you think they're going to expound on her return and how she returned? I kind of just think she's going to show up and we're still going to be left with questions. That's just me though. That's just me. Cuz like I just don't I feel like we say this kind of thing all the time and I mean, we don't get to make the decisions. We're not always the storyteller, so I mean, who am I to say, but I- I'm kind of like is this the project for that? Like is this the project for to explain why Ventress comes back? Like does it make sense, I guess is what I'm saying. Like does it make sense to explain that and talk about that and like explain the magic or what all happened about that in the Bad Batch. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I'm kind of like, it just doesn't seem like it would be necessarily explained here. So I'm kind of thinking we're going to be left with more questions than answers. That's just my hunch, though. Um, and then, like, the other question is I've seen a lot of people talking about this. Like, did she even die in the first place? Did Ventress even die in the first place? Or has she just been kind of like behind the scenes the whole time? And maybe she just never died. Let me see here. We got Journeyman here. How you doing, Journeyman?
Good. I just got through playing basketball. Sorry about that.
Very good. We've just been chatting about the Bad Batch. We talked a little bit about the Mandalorian game too, which we can go back and revisit if you want. But I was just looking at, I don't know if you can see the titles of the episodes coming up, but we were
Yep,
just talking
I can
about
see it.
cool. Next week is called The Return. What do you think that could mean? I'm kind of thinking maybe the return just means the return of Crosshair and Omega reuniting with Wrecker and Hunter, but Travis is in the chat and he's talking about how that could potentially mean like the return of Ventress or something like that.
That makes sense. I see it as if I'm going about it, since we left off on that serious note last time, I feel like it's the return of a brother or of Crosshair to the Bad Batch,
I
and
agree.
that's kind of what I feel like it needs to be, or at least in my opinion, that's what it should be about. Them trying to figure out a way to um, reconfigure everything back into the old ways of the Bad Batch, how everyone used to work.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the agreement with you in that I think this is just going to be the return of Crosshair. I don't even think it means the return of Omega necessarily.
No, 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 no.
Um, But well, I think what's more interesting, if you look to 6 and 7, they both come out on March 13th. Um,
Interesting.
looks like that's probably going to be like the mid-season finale.
Hmm.
6 and 7, infiltration and extraction. I think that has to mean like I hope it means Tantus. Because like correct me if I'm wrong, but like Omega's desire is to go back and save as many clones as possible on Tantus.
Hmm.
So it makes sense to me that we could potentially see uh, Rex and Echo maybe even show up at the end of episode 5 or the beginning of episode 6 because they're also invested in,
Hmm.
retrieving as many clones as possible. And like we see this really cool plan um, get executed. They infiltrate Tantus, they try to extract as many clones as possible. But episode 8 is called Bad Territory, and given that it's the mid-season finale, I kind of assume that it's not going to go the way that they think,
Mm, okay.
if that's how it goes down. Because I
I
don't
think it
know.
would be pretty. I mean, not saying it's the wrong thing. I think that'd be kind of a quick turnaround to be like, "Hey, we just got you back out, and then we're going back to Tantus." Maybe they're talking about a plan and they need to infiltrate an extraction somewhere where they like can build a plan up for it because I think you're right. Maybe 8 is where they're probably going back, or at least I think episode 11 is where I'm thinking of, just reading off of the titles, The Point of No Return.
Hmm.
I think that's where they're probably going back, at least in my opinion.
I mean, one would think, but did you also think that they were going to reunite this early too?
No, so I mean, in that sense, like, yes, that's probably what's gonna happen, but if you're just giving my opinion, like, I
Yeah.
feel like that would probably be where they need to do it.
Yeah. No, I get it for sure. It's just like that's what I was talking about before you got on here is like in a lot of ways, like I'm glad that they're just like getting right to the point. Like we're just moving the story right along.
Yes.
Um, but then it's like there hasn't been any filler in my opinion. Like it's been
No.
I was saying like this show has gotten me almost to the point where I'm like, yeah, I might actually like get up and like watch this, when it comes
Yeah.
out at 2 a.m. because I am invested
Although
in it.
although the moment we do that, it's gonna go back
It'll
to
be filler, exactly.
filler.
So that's why I'm not going to do it, but I'm saying
Yeah.
I might do it.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, like it's crazy how fast the season is going, like how quickly they're moving. But
Although,
that kind of
did you see that they're doing April 3rd as well? There's 2 episodes?
oh, I did not catch that. Identity crisis, point of no return. Interesting. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So who knows? I mean,
I mean, I just saw that now, so
yeah.
what could that mean?
Yeah. I don't
Mm.
know. It's exciting. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm glad. My hope is like maybe those are some like slower episodes. Maybe.
Mhm.
I mean, they sound really cool. Like infiltration and extraction sound pretty cool, and then like identity crisis and point of no return, they sound cool. But yeah, maybe they're like, yeah, these are a little bit slower. Like we're gonna like make sure that we release those.
Well,
Um,
I think the idea is that the, um the audience is not gonna stay that long if, like, we know there's gonna be some filler episodes in there. So they're like, "Let's keep them around, let's get them through it," and so that way, at least, even though it'll be 2 weeks before the next one, essentially, like,
mhm, mhm.
at least it keeps the fans engaged and involved in the storyline rather than just being like, "What's the point of me watching this?"
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, so I don't know. Like I it'll be interesting to see where they go from here. Like
Mhm,
one thing, the review that sticks out to me because I mean, you remember a couple weeks ago before this came out, we went over the reviews and like the people who
mhm,
had watched this first, and one of them was like, this season has really kind of strayed away and stayed away from like that typical episode of the adventure of the week,
mhm.
and and in some ways, I feel like it does do that. Like episode 2 with, like, the teenage clones and Hunter Wrecker felt kind of like adventure of the week,
Mhm.
um, and then, like, this last week's episode, like, still connected to the overall plot, but still just kinda like, "Okay, this is the adventure for this week," but I think that's the difference is, like, instead of it feeling, like, so one-off and single-handed,
Yes.
this is like it still feels connected to, like, the overall plot, which I really have appreciated and enjoyed, so
Yeah, which there can be downtimes and slow times in the story, but it needs to be like we're continuing along with the main type of story, and it not just happenstance, but like it needs to feel like they needed to go to this planet or this happened that they had to get here, you know?
mhm.
And it just doesn't need to be like, hey, we need to go here for a specific reason for this thing. And even though it is for the overall story, it still feels like, you know, it's a one off thing, like you said. Like it doesn't feel natural to a
Yeah.
degree.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Travis says Ventress does die, with her corpse being left around for a couple days before it's brought to Dathomir. Okay, interesting. Yeah, like again, I haven't read the Dark Disciple novel, but I've heard people say like, okay, and I think it's just people seeing her show back up
Hmm.
in seeing her show back up in the trailer and like, okay, so she didn't die. Like, obviously she's back. And so people
Hmm.
were like trying to come up with theories, but like Travis is like, no, she did die. So like, I don't know if you were here for that discussion, but Travis was saying like they need to explain why she comes back. And it's
Mm,
like my thing is I'm not saying they won't do that, but at the same time, like, is the Bad Batch the project where you like get into that background of this is
not.
why she comes back? I don't
It'll
I
probably
don't
be
think so.
explained, but it won't be explained to the full degree.
Pretty brief.
Uh, it'll be like a brief little thing, and it's like I feel like that's what you should do if you're Disney. It's like, hey, you should probably go. Not necessarily saying it's canon, but if you want more information, like the book is there. You know, even though it's
Mhm.
another step, at least for this show. And then maybe another show they go into more detail about that. But
Mhm. Mhm.
think for this show, it's just we need to focus on the Bad Batch as much as possible. And if some character comes along, that's great. Briefly describe what happened, and then move on. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I just hope that we're not getting our hopes like, I think this will be really cool to see Ventress,
yeah,
um, but I hope, like, we're also not, like, getting, like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, let's just not
yeah.
assume that they're gonna go, like, into too much detail, and this could just be very much like a cool cameo, like, "Oh, somehow Asajj Ventress has returned," and they not really give us a lot of information, but
I
it's
think
still a
that's
cool
what it's gonna
episode, you know what
be.
I
I
mean?
think it's gonna be a one-off. She comes in, she probably does something really cool, and then she like leaves because
Yeah.
there's to me there's just not a lot of reason for Ventures to be there unless they give us a reason. But like we need to still focus on the Bad Batch as much as possible.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think you're onto something there. Travis Dreamman. So,
Good.
LEB says, "Howdy, welcome, LEB. Glad to see you here. Excited to talk Star Wars with you." Um, let's see. Travis says, "Not really explaining how she came back, rather an episode of where she's been, how she got here, and why she fits in the series." Yeah, and I think the episode will probably answer all those questions. I'm just not sure that, like, we're gonna get a ton of details. You know what I
I
mean?
don't think it needs to be a full episode. Like they can, there is a way that you can do it within a few lines of dialogue.
Yeah. Do you do you think that like, okay, so Travis, break it down for us here. I know that something happens in Dark Disciple and basically like, well, let's just pull it up. Let's just pull it up here. I'm gonna unshare my screen real quick. Um, let's see, Dark Disciple Wikipedia. I'm just curious, like, because I think Quinlan Voss. Let me see.
What are you trying to figure out?
Well, like, I know, like, Quinlan Voss. Here it is. Um, like, I think Quinlan Voss turns to the dark side in
Quinlan
this
Voss
novel, if I
with
remember correctly.
infamous.
Joining forces against Dooku. Quinlan Voss gets transported to Sereno. These are like spoilers, by the way. Like, go ahead and throw the spoiler warning up here, just in case. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm trying to do here. I was just like, I'm trying to figure out like how it all connects, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I don't know. I just don't know how. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out how she comes back. That's why I'm just sitting here in
Yeah.
silence, and I can't figure it out. Uh, so anyway, let's see. LEB says, I'm going to go see The Chosen season 4, episodes 7 and 8 tomorrow, and I'm so excited. And I will remember to bring tissues because apparently these episodes have made people cry. Oh, yeah. I know we talked about this the other day. I haven't seen any of The Chosen, but I do know that it can get pretty emotional. So, um, anyway, I hope you enjoy that, Ellie. Let's see here. Senator Tony is here. He says, wow, never got notified. Sorry. Yeah, I know YouTube does that sometimes. I try to be consistent. Like, I went live a little bit later tonight, like 9:05, 9:10, somewhere in there, Tony. I'm trying to be consistent. It's like, just in case YouTube doesn't notify you, you'll know when I go live. So just remember, whatever time I post in the Discord, whatever time I schedule the stream for on YouTube, that's what I'm shooting for. So, but I'm glad you're here. We haven't talked about anything important. You haven't missed a single thing. You are just fine. But I do have to do this.
It's treason, then.
Anyway, treasonous Tony. Okay. Any thoughts on the Bad Batch that you want to go over? Anything else that you could think of or want to talk about? Any thoughts on the Mandalorian game
The Mandalorian game. Quickly,
being
I think
canceled?
yeah. I think it's kind of sad for the people that really wanted it. I am kind of glad that it did get canceled. Not like to be mean or anything. I just don't feel like a first person Mandalorian and really Star Wars game, first person anything's hard to do, right? And so, other than like a first person shooter,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think it's a good thing that it
Yeah.
got canceled. Am I sad for the people
Yeah.
that really
I
wanted
agree.
it? Yes, but I feel like it's a good thing that they did it. Is it typical Star Wars that they announce something and then cancel it? Yes. So in that sense, like I'm also not shocked either.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I think that it's one of those things where it's like it's sad again that we get a project where,
It's
I don't
announced
know, like
too.
we
Like
get something,
it's
it's
yeah.
announced. Well, and that's the thing, like I don't even know if this one was really announced. It was one of those things again where it's like it kind of got released and then before they could figure it all out, it's gone. So it's
Yeah.
gone. Travis says, it probably won't be important as the last time we saw her on screen, it was just Anakin threatening her with a lightsaber. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what they come up with. I'm sure that they'll give us something. I just don't know that they're going to give us a ton to latch onto. Ellie says, I wonder if demons exist in the Star Wars universe, and if so, can people be possessed by them? Like I'm talking Mary Magdalene, The Chosen season 1, episode 1.
I mean
Again, haven't seen The Chosen, but
the only real like possessed that I can come up with is the Mortis episode where Ahsoka gets like possessed by the sun, right?
mm, yeah, I mean that's a good what's the word? Connection, allegory,
Yeah.
analogy.
Other than that, really, I don't think so. I could be
Yeah.
wrong, but
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that there's probably some elements, LEV that are similar. Um, let's see. this is kind of where I was going to go. Travis said it, but people can be possessed by spirits attached to their belongings once worn, used by a person, so they can be manipulated, possessed. So yeah, like the Sith can latch onto objects and things like that. So I think there's an element of possession, and I think Journeyman is right. Like Ahsoka being kind of like corrupted, I think, by the dark side through the sun, I think is another good kind of like connection and piece to it. Okay, I wanted to talk through. I'm going to try to share my screen again. It's kind of running into some issues though. Um, have you? They're not even like really new reports, but have you seen anything new out lately about Ray's movie, the new Ray
Nope.
movie?
Nope. Haven't even.
Okay,
Don't look
so
at a lot
like,
of Star
there's
Wars
been a
stuff.
lot of speculation. Sure. Well, there's been like a lot of speculation about like what this is going to be. Like, is it going to be episode 10, basically? Like, is this going to be
Sure.
the start of a new trilogy, or is this going to be a standalone? And basically, the newest reports are this is not going to be episode 10, at least as of right now. This is going to be like a standalone Daisy Ridley Star Wars movie. It's not going to be episode 10. So I'll try to share my screen and we can read this
Wait, maybe I did
article.
hear that. I think Josh was kind of talking about it from the Den of Nerds, and so I
Probably,
think I
yeah.
heard that. But
We'll try to read this. Hopefully, if it starts to look like the stream is going to crash because I'm still working out some kinks on this, I'll remove it. But let's read through this and kind of see what's going on here. So this is Star Wars Newsnet. I honestly not entirely sure if they're reliable, but I know enough about this and the reliable people out there. This is the only article that I could find on this, but we'll just kind of read through it and see. Article title report Daisy Ridley's Star Wars movie is not titled Episode 10 despite rumors. It says reports have been floating around today in regards to Daisy Ridley's upcoming Star Wars movie and the potential title it may have. According to the latest rumor, the film will be called Star Wars Episode 10 A New Beginning. Now, like before we even get any farther, Star Wars Episode 10 A New Beginning. Does that excite you? Like, give me your honest opinion. Like, is that an exciting, intriguing title to you?
just as the title, yes. The people involved with it, not really. But
Okay,
if we're going off of the title, yes.
that's funny because, like, I kind of said the same thing. I disagree with you slightly, but I kind of said the same thing in Mike, a guy who loves Star Wars Discord. I was like, when I think about a post Episode 9, post sequel trilogy era movie, I'm at a 10 out of 10. Like, in terms of hype level, like I want to see
Sure.
that movie. You know
Sure.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I start to think about all the PR and the people and everything involved with it, and I'm like, hmm. I'm not saying
Yeah.
they're not going to do a good job. They could do like the most amazing job ever, and we'll all be
Right.
surprised. And this will be my favorite Star Wars movie ever.
Sure.
I'm just saying when I think about it and all all the different pieces and the factors that go into it, just like, hearing other people's opinions about it. And I'm trying to like be objective and like, I'm trying to make my own opinions and form my own opinions about it.
hmm
But I can't help sometimes like let other people's things soak in. And I'm trying to avoid that. It just
So,
makes me less excited.
can I give you an idea for what I think they should do? It's not. I'm
Y-
just now thinking of this now. But
You can, unless you steal my idea.
okay, I think, and hear me out. They kind of do the. I think they need to do a similar thing. Hear me out. I'm gonna say this is something really crazy in my mind. They kind of need to do something that the sequels need to do, and that you throw Ray to the back burner and you start with a new group of characters who are like that are so underdeveloped and they're starting to like learn the force and like they're really not doing well on their own, you know?
Mhm, mhm.
And you what I think would be cool is then you be like, okay, here's the new group of characters. They're really underdeveloped. Let's grow them into great characters. And then you throw Daisy at the end of that movie and be like, okay, here you go. It's kind of another Luke situation, but at least we're not thinking about her till the and I'm being on all honesty for the character, not Daisy herself. But like the character of Ray, all it leaves it to the end. So we're not like
Yeah.
knowing even though we know she's gonna be in there, at least we can go with a new group of characters and be like, okay, Daisy, try and develop these characters. And then that gives, at least to me, a fresh start on Ray's character as well. Like not saying that you're gonna make her character what it was in the sequels, but
Mhm,
you at least give her a fresh beginning of teaching and then maybe learning from Luke of her understanding of it, and give her
mhm.
like the foundational, give her kind of the Ahsoka treatment. Like she needs to learn how to be a teacher,
Yeah.
and of like
Mhm.
understanding the Force. And maybe she takes away all of what Luke taught her, what we didn't even see off on screen.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you. I think they have to. I don't think that's the route they're going to go. I think Ray is going to be very central to this movie, but I do think like they need to make sure that they do a good job of showing us her struggles
Yes.
and showing us what she struggles with. Um so okay, I'll just tell you what my idea is. I'm actually going to create a video about this tomorrow, and it should come out on Sunday of like what I want the sequel trilogy or the not the sequel trilogy, the Daisy Ridley movie to be about. And
Hmm.
I have to admit I use Chat GPT a little bit, AI to like kind of help me iron out some of the ideas.
Sure.
Um, but Chat GPT actually came up with a fantastic title if this was going to be episode 10.
Sure. Do
And
you
I,
like my
I
idea though?
yes,
Or
I
is it
think no, and
terrible?
it kind of goes into what I'm about to say.
Okay.
I feel like a little bit. So, and we can circle back to your idea, but the title that
Sure.
Chat GPT spat out for my idea of the movie is called Star
Hmm.
Wars Episode 10 Shattered Light.
Okay.
So
Interesting
I'm
title.
curious when you hear Shattered Light, what do you think that means or what comes to mind? Shattered Light. Let me know in the chat too, senators, what you think.
I think, I mean, we're starting off ominous. So, like, the light side is, good and everything, but then you have, like, that kind of shattering of it. So that means, like, something from the dark side or something of the dark side presence is coming back. I'm not saying it's
Hmm.
actually a dark
Hmm.
side user. It could be the Yusong Wong or is that how you say it?
Hmm.
Whatever. Like it could be that, but like
I think that's the
something
legends. The Grisk is more canon, I believe. But yes, keep going.
something of that nature. Like something uh, bad people are coming. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like
Bad
that's
people are
kind of what
coming.
it.
Travis says he likes your idea, by the way. You need to get a grounded sense of the universe after everything that happened. Tony also says, agree with Journeyman. So there you go. You have some fans out there. Um,
Good.
let's see. Shattered Light is literally about a kyber crystal, but also telling that finding the light is about finding individual pieces one at a time to form the whole shape of what it means. Wait, so is that actually a thing, Travis? So my idea. Let me get into my idea. Shattered Light, basically, and you know this about me, Journeyman.
Mhm.
You know that I want to see different factions of the Jedi and what that means.
Mhm.
So to
Mhm.
me, kind of going along your idea is like, okay, Rey is the last Jedi. Like that's the reality of it. Like Luke
Sure.
was the last Jedi. He he gate passed on everything that he knew to Rey. And then she's the last Jedi. She's helping rebuild the Jedi Order. To me,
Mhm.
she was not very like at least what we saw on the screen. She was not very grounded in the sense that everyone, like what you're saying and everyone else is saying, grounded in her own beliefs as a Jedi. So I think there's going to
Yes.
be a lot of variability in what this new Jedi Order is supposed to do, how they perceive the
Sure.
Force, how they use the Force, why the Force
Mhm.
exists, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's going to be different factions and different people uh, that believe the Force and have a perception of the Force. And I think what's going to happen is, and I would love for Ahsoka to be still alive at this point and just
Mhm.
be solely Ahsoka the White, really
Mhm.
take on that role of mentor and like basically Ahsoka's like kind of at Gandalf at this point, and she's just a
Yep.
guide. She's
Yep.
not even like she's not a master in a sense. She doesn't even really have her hand in the new Jedi Order. She's just
Nope.
advising people. She's
Yep.
just like this is the Force.
Yep.
I am literally a Force god. I'm connected with a Force god. I know a thing or two about the Force. This is the Force, and she just advises Rey on how to do this. But Shattered Light means we have the Jedi, which is supposed to be this, you know, this prestigious group of people who understand and know the Force a certain way. But because
Mhm.
Rey was never really grounded, and not saying like it's not necessarily a character flaw, but it's like she never really got like the training probably that she needed to understand to be a Jedi, and she's just kind of figuring it
Sure.
out all by herself. Like
Mhm.
that's gonna cause people to divide and become fractioned out. And I would really love to see like one faction of this Jedi come to the conclusion that the dark side of the Force is acceptable and kind of like be like more open to that interpretation of the dark side and be like kind of a Jedi who leans more into the dark and starts to like dabble a certain way and let that be the villain. That way you're not bringing back the Sith, but like the
Mhm.
villain is a Jedi who's being tempted by the dark side and going too far in that direction and it's like no 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 like it's fine to have this view of the Force in this way and like really start to see like how one kind of like Anakin can be corrupted in their mindset and go towards that direction, let them
Mhm.
be the villain, and then like you said the other day, basically let the show or the movie called Shattered Light basically be a civil war between factions where Ahsoka Tano, who is, I think LAB said that they did the math at this point. Uh, Ellie says she'd be 87, so she could be alive. Just sit back,
Mhm.
not necessarily take sides, but just kind of sit back and see the Jedi and the galaxy going into turmoil because of the Force being perceived a certain way. And Rey really have to deal with the fact who, I mean, let's face it, she is going to be the most prestigious Jedi in the sense that she was the last Jedi or is the last Jedi. So that's going to be a struggle for her to like have to figure out, okay, like Luke and Leia passed on everything that they know to me. And now I'm responsible for figuring this all out, uniting these people, bringing these people together to form a new Jedi to protect this galaxy. And I'm not doing a
Mhm.
very good job of it. I
Mhm.
need help.
So
What do you think?
I like your idea, and the reason I like it is because it's a lot talking a lot about society today, the good and the bad of it. Also,
Mhm.
I think it would be great to have, especially with generation like our generation and generations after us growing up, we're the kids are asking a lot of questions like why, and like that's the
Mhm.
one of the number of reasons why. And I think it would be interesting to find a movie that does the exact same thing of questioning the Force, questioning the Jedi, questioning
Mhm.
everything, and being like,
Mhm.
why this, why this, why this. And so that, like you said, it breaks into that civil war. Um, and I think it would just be kind of grounded in that cultural sense, which Disney likes to do.
True. Mm-hmm.
And so if you can do it correctly in the Star Wars way, I really do like that. I think it would be really interesting if you. It's just, to me, it it's once again, it's just the feelings I have from the sequel. It really comes down to Rey's character a lot.
Yeah. But I think that this movie, if done correctly, will give an opportunity to make things right. Um,
True. Well, and
and I
especially
just,
even move past it.
yeah, and like I'm planning on including this in the video, but and it may be even this article. We can read the article here in a second, but Daisy Ridley has like read the script, I guess, and is like, it's not what she's like, it's not what I expected, but it's cool, and I'm like, well, that's compelling.
Well, and so yes.
Like, I know she can't tell us anything about it,
No,
but
and I don't expect her to, but my and I understand it's Disney, and you kind of can't say no to Disney in a way, but if I'm her, like, and it's not the thing that I want, yes, I can ask for, like, a different script or something like that. But especially with how the sequels went, why go through that trauma again? Like, and maybe they're paying her big bucks, and that's why she's doing it. And I totally get that fact too. But I'm just like, why go through the headache again of it?
yeah, I mean,
Like, it is honestly a legit question that I wish she would. I know she's never going to answer it, but I wish she would answer it.
yeah, I know what you're saying.
And
I
once again, it is not on her. I understand that. I'm just simply asking from her perspective why she wants to go through with it again. Like, and get down to the heart of it. Because if I'm
probably
being
money,
honest,
but
if I'm being honest with you, like, it's Star Wars, and yes, I love Star Wars. But if I was an actor and I had to go through that whole trauma again, and I get it, they're paid really well. I'm just like, why am I doing a movie that the fans aren't gonna like, just from the PR perspective, and then I have to go through the whole carousel of everyone telling me I'm that terrible, that bad, and everything. Like, to me, I would hate it, in my personal opinion.
then I'm just playing kind of devil's advocate here, but
No,
then
do it, please.
that would kind of steer Hayden from coming back then, though, right? Because he went through
True,
the same
but
thing.
he did that for what, 20 years? Like, he did a couple movies here and there, but I don't know any of them. And he pretty much stayed out of the limelight for however long before he finally decided to come back. But that was also because the fans showed the appreciation of those movies at after a certain time
Well,
period.
and so I would that's it. So that's the answer, which you just said, and Travis said it here. I think it kind of goes back to the conversation we were having on Wednesday on the Senate Chamber Discord, which shout out to Travis, shout out to Tony, shout out to Journeyman for all being there. If you want to have access to the audio channel on my Discord, you just have to become a member. I'll give you access to that. And then on top of that, sorry, someone's spamming in the chat. On top of that, if you don't want to become a member, you could just also join the Discord and discuss what's there. But I think that the key is here, and we talked about this on that day. You just have to think and remember that these movies, everybody appreciates Star Wars differently. And since I have kids, I kind of see that differently now.
Sure.
I feel like if my kids watch the sequel trilogy, I am not going to tell them, and they like the sequel trilogy, I'm not going to tell them that these are stupid movies. You know what I mean? Even if
Sure.
I feel
Yeah.
it that way. So for them, for my kids or whoever, it doesn't even have to be kids, it can be anyone who appreciates these movies. To them, this movie and this announcement is going to be good and they're going to love it. And so Daisy's probably doing it for them. And that's what Travis says. I think Daisy Ridley is doing it for the kids who grew up on the sequels who will be adults by this time it comes out.
Yeah.
So I would say that's my take on it too. I would agree. Agree with Travis, and that's probably why she's doing it. So
And if that is, and whatever answer she gives, like, I doesn't matter the answer for me. Like, I'm genuinely curious. And if that's the answer, then great. Like, I don't need like her to try and win me over. I'm just saying, like, I'm just genuinely curious.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I think that's what it comes down to, and that's what I want. That's just the mindset that I've fallen under now. Is that even if I don't like a project, somebody else might. And I think I think what we can all agree on is like as long as a movie doesn't do what like The Last Jedi did and be so divisive to the point where we are where we're at as a fandom today, I'm good. So like Andor, for example, like you can do Andor. I'm not gonna like it, but it's not like super divisive in a sense. It's just it was for some people and it wasn't for others.
Yeah.
Whereas The Last Jedi made some really, really, really like interesting choices with characters, plot, like the connection to episode 7. And I think that it just did a lot of harm. And honestly, took away from the potential of what that movie could mean. Um,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get to a few comments here real quick. So going
Sure.
back to Travis's comment here, Travis said Shattered Light is literally about a kyber crystal, but also telling that finding the light is about finding individual pieces one at a time to form the whole shape of what it means. He said, "That's my take on the title. Makes more sense. I like that, Senator." Um, my episode
10.
9 idea was called Ray of the Crimson Sun, which is a hint as to what my route would be. Interesting. Crimson Sun. Maul, perhaps? LEB said Ahsoka would be really old though, and then Travis said Ahsoka is alive. When asked about her voice cameo in episode 9, Dave Filoni said that it doesn't mean she's dead, and I would agree. I, I would say that Ahsoka is alive, and given her connection to the cosmic force and Anakin, as we see it in the Ahsoka show, she is probably more than able to communicate with Rey in episode 9, uh, and have that, like, you know, that moment with her without even having to be dead.
Personally, I think she's in
Also,
the other
fun
galaxy
fact,
at that point.
I think so too. Or what I've always thought, and I have made tons of videos about this. So Travis, if you want to see my videos on it, reach out to me. I'll send you. But I want Ray desperately to be the in the world between worlds, like the protector of the world between worlds.
Hmm.
I think that would be so interesting.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Hang on just a second. Will you just chat about episode 9 for a second?
Okay. So, episode 9. Um, what can I say about this, guys? Episode 9 was definitely better than episode 8. Um, let's actually go back and let's not even talk about the sequels. How about we talk about the Bad Batch and what my thoughts are? So the last episode, which was, sorry, my recollection is off. Let me pull it up here, ladies and gentlemen. The last episode, which was called Different Approach, I really did like it. You had elements, you had the ending, of course, which left us on a cliffhanger, which I really enjoyed. Um, Crosshair and Omega kind of reuniting with the Bad Batch. You had the emotional scene of Omega running into Wrecker's arms and then into Hunter's arms. So that hit me in the feels. You had um, the escape, which of all the animals at that point in the episode, and I think that kind of foreshadows what we're going to see in the show, which is a clone a clone rebellion in a way. So the releasing of all the animals, Crosshair says at that point, like, or Omega says, like, can we get all the animals? And Crosshair says, you're pushing your luck. And so I feel like that's kind of what she's going to do with the whole Bad Batch is say, hey, we need to go back and get all the clones. And they're going to, talk about it and fight and not fight, but have a discussion about what's going on. And then what else happened in the Bad Batch? What was the beginning of Bad Batch? I can't remember. What happened?
Confined, the episode Confined?
No, the
or which
last
episode?
The direct approach, the one that we
A different
just
approach.
watched.
Basically,
Yeah.
Basically, they just, I think we're on that planet. Like they crash landed on that planet is what happened.
Right, and so you had all that happen, and I thought the episode was really good.
Yeah.
I gave in the Discord call, I gave my episode ranking like a 9, and I really enjoyed that.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of my thoughts on Bad Batch. If you all wanted it, so there you go.
There you go. Sorry, I was tending to my daughter. She now figured out how to open doors. And so I was like, I heard the door open. I was like, who's opening a door?
We're at that stage of life.
And there she was just poking her. We're at that stage of life. She was just poking her little head out. And I was like, oh no. So I had to go tend to her. Like, she was so cute. But like she was like scared. She's like, am I allowed to come out? Am I not allowed to come out? And I was like,
It's like my dog. It's like
But-
my dog poking her head around the corner. That's
yeah,
funny.
it was really, it freaked me out because that's a new thing. So anyway, let me get back to some of these comments here. Trav says to say that if the Jedi, the light dies is vanity. Light is found through more than one religion or viewpoint. Exactly right, Travis. And that's why I want to see multiple viewpoints and kind of see those competing ideologies come to a head and figure out how we're going to move forward. Because at this point, like if we're going to bring Force users back, there's kind of like a power vacuum in a sense of like what is going to be the prevalent and the most adopted and widespread ideology, and like how is that going to move the galaxy forward. Tony says Ahsoka and Sabine inherit and star in comedy series titled The Golden given their age at the time. Let's see. Sometimes I wonder if we will ever get a Star Wars equivalent of Abraham. I know it's not likely, but my mind wonders. So LAB's wondering if we'll get an equivalent of Abraham. So like, I guess that would mean like the Force revealing itself to a certain character and kind of like asking them to take it a certain way. I mean, in some ways, I kind of feel like maybe that's Ahsoka. Like I feel like Ahsoka has been given the opportunity to understand the Force in a vastly different way than a lot of people have, just because she is so uniquely connected to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's a little bit out of order because I think, like, Anakin uh, was born of the Force, and so there's kind of like that representation of Christ, like the virgin birth. And of course, Ahsoka like comes after that. So Abraham, like the timeline's a little off, but I think in terms of divine revelation to a character, I think Ahsoka is pretty close to that, but maybe not like
Mm-hmm.
quite 1 to 1. So
Yep.
Travis says Ray is fascinating as she's a little girl who never grew out of that mindset while becoming an adult. She had to force herself to grow even though she never got to. And that's a really great point, Travis. I think I wish we just kind of got to see that a little more fleshed out on screen.
Yes.
I'm not saying they did a bad job, but it's like I just wish we would have got to see it a little bit more.
I feel like, yeah, I'll
Yeah.
stop hating on them now. I'll just let you talk about it. Travis.
Just skip over that.
I think that's a better point than what most people have in mind. And so I like that.
Mm-hmm. Tony says we should be discussing a protagonist that Ray would be up against. We should be discussing a protagonist that Ray would be up against. Protagonist would be the good guy? So are you saying Ray's going to be the bad guy, Tony? Yeah, there's some strange comments going on in the chat, but we will skip over that. Let's see. Travis agreed as well. Star Wars is a generation film series. The kids that grew up with the sequels, Ray is their Luke. Yeah. And we don't have to get back into the depths of that conversation, but
Yeah.
I would agree. Like, I just think of my kids and what they will choose to watch, and who am I to tell them that it's Star Wars or not Star Wars? If they appreciate it, I'm going to sit down and watch it with them, and I want to see the joy of Star Wars come through their eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and like what they appreciate about it, and that will in turn probably make me appreciate it too. So we'll see. We'll see how my mind. As a trilogy, I think the sequels are horrible. But I could still have fun with certain aspects of them, I guess, if that
I
makes
think the
sense.
best movie of the sequels is 7. Like I enjoyed that film.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. Travis says the Jedi/Empire First Final Order is about kidnapping, indoctrinating children. I see a villain being someone whose child was taken by one of these groups, seeing the return of the Jedi as a threat. That's possible, but I feel like this child, indoctrinated child, would have to have some knowledge or possession of the Force to be a threat against a Jedi. You know what I mean? That's not the same. Like, if they can get enough following, perhaps they could raise an empire or a first order like following ideology and pose a threat to the galaxy. But in terms of who would pose a threat to the Jedi, I think you would have to be a Force user or a very powerful species of some sorts.
And maybe this is a terrible idea, but what if
Um,
on Exegol, one of
expands on this a little bit.
sorry,
Go ahead.
what if one of Palpatine's ghouls on Exegol, after it collapsed or something like that, what if that was one of the main characters? It'd be kind of a cop out, wouldn't it? But
I really don't want it to be connected, honestly. You know what I
okay.
mean? Kind of like
Yeah,
you
no,
said,
no,
let's
no.
just start fresh.
I want it to start fresh. I'm just saying, if you were going to connect it, would that be a terrible idea, or would
Mhm.
you? What would? Is there someone that we're not even thinking of that would be for that, or like the antagonist in that case?
It's not a terrible idea. Are you saying they would have a possession and knowledge of the Force?
Yeah, I mean, they were literally working on Palpatine. So like I feel like all those
I don't love it.
I feel like all those people at some point
I
have.
don't want Palpatine. I don't want connections. I want it to be new and fresh.
No, I totally agree with you. I'm just saying if they were going to connect it.
I think we lagged out for a little. I don't know if you heard what I said, but I was saying like I don't
No.
want it to be connected to Palpatine.
Yeah, I know.
I just
I
feel like we need to take it in a new and fresh direction, you know?
I totally agree. Yeah, we can leave it at that. I agree on that point.
Yeah. I had to drop the article, so I'm going to bring it back up real quick. Let's see. Tony says, but the Jedi at Rey's time is just a group of Force users that are legends. Most people in the universe don't even remember what a Jedi is. Yeah, so there's going to be like a lot of rebuilding and a lot of like trust that the Jedi have to, like, if they're going to build a new order, like my understanding of the old Jedi Order is everybody knew who they were. They were the peacekeepers of the galaxy. Like there was a trust that was built between them and the entire galaxy. So how is Trey? I almost said Trey. How is Rey going to rebuild that trust with the galaxy? Rey.
And rebuild the trust for the Order as well. Like who's gonna join that Order and join her?
Yeah, so like, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I loved about 9 upon rewatch was how similar Pasana was to Jakku. It's identical, but the difference is one is miserable while the other is a festival of color and happiness. Yeah, that is true. That is true. I think this is in regards to when you were talking about the Bad Batch. Ellie said I liked it too. I rated a 4.1 out of 5. It was fast paced, which was nice. Let's see here. See if there's anything else. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. We know from episode 9 that the First Order was targeting children who potentially had the Force, like Finn and Shauna. The people against Rey could be the thousands of people who lost a child that way. Yeah, that's true. I just, again, like the connection there to the sequels. I just want to make sure that we're not. I just feel like we need something fresh. So that's the hope that I have. Let me try to pull up this article again really quick, and then we can read this and then share our thoughts on it.
Sure. Yep.
If I can get it to work here. Okay. So we talked about how this was a new beginning. So it says that is not the case at all, we hear. The project, which remains deep in development at Lucasfilm, with Stephen Knight writing the script, has referred to internally as New Jedi Order. This is the tentative title that was announced at Star Wars Celebration last April. No episode 10 there. And though a new beginning may have been floated at one point as a title possibility, as we reported last October, we understand that it hasn't moved beyond that point since then. Will it be called New Jedi Order when it screens in theaters? Hopefully in 2026. It's obviously at this point. Will New Jedi Order act as the working title? Working title is essentially a code name for the production so that they don't attract unwanted onlookers. Andor Season 1 under the codename Pilgrim, which you could find in the signs placed around the filming locations. Having the word Jedi in that secret title seems like it would trigger a lot of attention. And speaking of working titles, the Cosmic Circus is saying that the Mandalorian Grogu's will be Thunder Alley, blah, blah, blah. I don't even think that we necessarily need to go into all of that. So, Yeah, like the article's basically just saying like the Rey movie is likely not going to be an episode 10. And what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that we need to be going the direction of like an episode 10, or should we be going in the direction of let's just make this a standalone movie, call it what it is, and then move on with our lives? Maybe we make a sequel out of it if it's good and it's received well, or maybe we just leave it as is. What are your thoughts?
So I kind of feel um, that Star Wars has always been a trilogy. I know we do have standalone movies like
Mm-hmm.
Solo and Rogue One, but for the most part, it has always been a trilogy.
Yeah.
Um, Especially those movies, Rogue One and Solo, they're more of like in between trilogies, and like you can kind of find them in between the timelines, so they kind
Mm-hmm.
of help connect some dots. Not
Mm-hmm.
saying a lot of dots, but at least some dots. So I feel like if you're doing anything with Ray, I don't care what it is, if she could be at the end of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
like it kind of needs to be a trilogy, in my personal opinion. However,
Interesting.
granted, the this is how I also feel, so I'm like really 50-50 on this, but I would rather have it be a trilogy, more or less. The other way I feel is if Disney understands what that means, that they're doing a trilogy with Ray, and
Mm-hmm.
the PR and all the backlash that it will receive, just because there's a lot of people that there's a loud minority or majority or whatever, I don't know how big it is, but there's a loud contingent that don't like the sequels, and um, I feel like playing it safe and doing a one-off movie is probably the better option, and then
Mm-hmm.
saying, "Hey, we can make something now since people are into this, and
Mm-hmm.
it receives well." Now, what is being my question then at that point is like, what is perceived well? Is it like what kind of profit, or and just in terms of money, since that's a quantifiable thing, like how much do you have to make in order to call that a success? And so I
Mm-hmm.
don't want them rushing and being like, well, we made some profit of just like $1 or whatever. If the movie's a success, like we need to, I think internally they need to define what it is. And if it hits that mark, great, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Go for it and do a trilogy.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
if it doesn't hit that mark, then you need to just actually start new and be like, we are actually starting fresh.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's probably got to be like some type of monetary value on it, just for
Hmm.
it to make sense. But I hope that they take into consideration as well how it's received by fans. And at the very least, if it makes them a lot of money, but fans have strong opinions on it either way, whether good or bad, I hope that they take those into consideration. And like, if they're going to do more movies, then they listen to the fans and try to do their best to give everybody a toy. Um, along the same lines as you, I think like
Yep.
for consistency's sake, I like the idea of the episode 10, 11, 12. But like you said, I think at this point it's safer just to be like, we're just going to do one movie. And that one movie needs to be a good standalone movie. And it kind of reminds me of like what episode 4, the first movie, did. On its
Hmm.
own, that movie is a standalone movie. It doesn't
Yep.
necessarily need a sequel, but it kind of like warrants a sequel. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's like it can be good without having another movie. And then Empire, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, we need another movie because like the bad guy won, like let's get another movie. But at that point,
Yep.
they knew they probably had a moneymaker. So it's like I feel like that's kind of what they need to do at this point is like
Yep.
make the movie, see how it's received, let it be a standalone, and then give us another movie if need be.
And they
And then
don't.
if anything, if this movie is really, really cool and it works out really, really well, and later on they're
Mhm.
like, okay, yeah, we're gonna make 2 other movies based off of a similar storyline, then just
Sure.
call it episode 10 and 11 and 12. Like you can
Yeah.
they can go back and retroactively do that in my opinion. But
I
like for
mean,
now, let's just be like we're making one. So,
yeah. I mean, look at all the changes that George and Lucasfilm has made over the years just within the original 6. Like,
mhm.
even just for little things, like people walking a certain way or whatever, like, there's been slight changes to it. So, yeah, like, if you wanna
Yeah.
do that. But
Yeah.
that's kind of what I was gonna say is, like, it doesn't need to be called episode 10 until you
Mhm.
know that it's a thing.
Yeah,
Like, it
I
it
agree.
it fits into that trilogy. It just needs to be called Ray something, or like you don't even call it Ray, just be like, it's this. It is about Ray, but don't even like say it. And then if it's great, you can make 2 more, like you said, call it episode 10 and do it that way. But it does not need to be episode 10 until you know you're making actual episode 10.
Mhm.
Whether
Yeah.
whether you've already made it or you are actually going to make it now. Like, don't call it what it is and then flip on it. That's kind of my thing.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that for sure. 100%. Well, I think we had a lot of good conversation. We've gone about an hour and 40 minutes. So I think we're going to wrap it up here. Make sure if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. I would really appreciate it. The goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers by June 1st. So I would really appreciate it if you tell all your friends, tell your family, whoever you want to watch to come check out Star Wars Democracy uh, and hit that subscribe button. We do have the free link to the Discord, Star Wars Democracy Discord, in the description. If you want to come check that out as well, you can come talk to us. We can keep the conversation going over there. And then, other than that, just appreciate having you all here. Travis, Tony, Ellie, it's great to have all of you. So glad to have the 3 of you here. It's a lot of fun to have the 3 of you here bouncing around ideas and chatting and talking in the chat. Tony also says, hit that like. I would appreciate that as well. You know, they used to say, or they say that likes don't help out a ton, but I disagree. I found that likes on my videos do help out a ton. So make sure you hit that like button, please, 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 and thank you. Um, so what do you say, Journeyman? Should we motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn, sir.
Let's motion to adjourn. I appreciate you, Senators. We're going to go ahead and adjourn the stream. May the force be with you always.